Through the observation window, a dozen pairs of eyes watched Tay enter the isolation chamber. The room was large, designed for patients who needed space. Medical equipment lined the walls, but most of it was unplugged. The machines had proven useless against Krathvor's defensive systems. The Vorash lay on a reinforced surgical bed in the center of the room. He was massive, even lying down. His armored skin was dark gray with patterns that looked like ancient scars. His chest rose and fell slowly. Too slowly, Tay did not rush forward. Instead, he stood near the door, watching. Veltara noticed that he kept his body turned slightly to the side, never facing Krathvor directly. It looked casual, but something about it seemed intentional. "What is he doing?" Dr. Kira asked. Her scales had returned to their normal green color after her recovery, but her voice still carried fear. "Waiting," Yuna said from behind them. She had joined the group at the observation window. "He is letting Krathvor's senses register his presence without feeling threatened." "The Vorash is sedated," Dr. Sung said with frustration. "He cannot register anything." "His body can," Yuna replied. "Watch." Tay began to move, but not toward the patient. He walked along the edge of the room, his steps slow and deliberate. He never made direct eye contact with Krathvor. Instead, he moved like water, fluid and non-threatening. Veltara realized he was approaching from an angle, never head-on. Then Tay did something that made every doctor tense up. He started talking, but he was not speaking in Galactic Common, the language everyone used. He was not even speaking in human languages. The sounds coming from his mouth were low and rhythmic, almost musical. They had no words, just tones that rose and fell in a pattern. "What language is that?" Veltara whispered. "It is not a language," Yuna said softly. "It is the sound of calm. On Earth, predators respond to frequency and rhythm more than words. He is telling Krathvor's unconscious mind that he is not a threat." On the monitors displaying Krathvor's vital signs, something changed. The levels of defensive chemicals in his system started to drop. Just slightly, but measurably. "Impossible," Dr. Kira breathed, her scales flashing yellow with shock. Tay moved closer now, still making those low, calming sounds. He was within 15 feet of Krathvor, closer than any doctor had managed since the Vorash arrived. The machines showed no electrical buildup in Krathvor's skin, no paralysis chemicals in the air. Tay reached out one hand, but he did not touch yet. He simply held it near Krathvor, letting his scent reach the Vorash's powerful nose. Veltara understood suddenly what Yuna had meant. Tay smelled like a predator. Humans ate meat, hunted, had the chemical signature of carnivores. Most species on the station, including Veltara's people, had evolved from prey animals. They smelled like plants and fear. To Krathvor's unconscious mind, Tay smelled familiar. Not friendly, but not prey either. Predator to predator. The Vorash's eyes opened. Every alarm in the station went off at once. Veltara's hand moved toward the emergency button, ready to activate containment protocols. Dr. Sung grabbed Yuna's arm, pulling her back from the window as if the glass would not protect them. But Tay did not run. He did not freeze in fear. He simply sat down. He lowered himself slowly to the floor, making himself smaller, less imposing. He kept making those low, rhythmic sounds. His eyes were on Krathvor, but not staring, not challenging, just acknowledging. Krathvor's massive head turned, his eyes yellow and sharp, focused on the human sitting on his floor. For a long moment, nothing happened. The entire station seemed to hold its breath. Then Krathvor made a sound. It was deep, rumbling from his chest like distant thunder, but it was not a growl. Veltara checked the translation software. The sound meant acknowledgement, acceptance, the Vorash equivalent of a nod. "By the stars," Veltara whispered. For the next hour, Tay simply stayed with Krathvor. He did not try to examine him yet or bring in medical equipment. He just sat there, occasionally making those calming sounds, letting the Vorash become accustomed to his presence. Sometimes Tay would move slightly, and Krathvor's eyes would track the movement. But there was no aggression, no defensive response. Slowly, carefully, Tay began to touch. First just a hand on Krathvor's armored forearm, letting the contact register, then moving his hand along the arm, gentle but confident, the same way someone might pet a large dog with respect but no fear. Krathvor watched everything Tay did. Once, when Tay's hand moved near a particularly painful wound, the Vorash made a low warning sound. Tay immediately pulled back, made soothing noises, waited, then tried again more carefully. This time Krathvor allowed it. Finally, Tay stood and walked to the door. When he emerged from the isolation chamber, his clothes were damp with sweat, but his expression was satisfied. The doctors surrounded him immediately, all talking at once. Veltara held up one hand for silence. "How did you do that?" she asked simply. Tay took a drink from a water bottle that Yuna handed him. "You were all afraid," he said. Krathvor could smell it. Fear triggers a predator's instincts. It tells them there is danger, which makes them dangerous. I was not afraid because I have worked with animals like him my whole life. I respect them, but I do not fear them. There is a difference. Dr. Sung shook his head. Krathvor is not an animal. He is a sentient being, intelligent and aware. I know, Tay said patiently, but his body does not care about philosophy when it is in survival mode. When you are hurt and scared and surrounded by creatures that smell like prey acting terrified of you, your body goes into defense mode. You have to speak to the predator part first, then the person part. He turned to Veltara. I can perform the surgery, but it has to be done differently than you planned. How? Veltara asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Krathvor needs to be partially conscious. No heavy sedation. No restraints. Just him, me, and 2 assistants he can see and trust. The hallway went silent. Dr. Kira's scales turned pale blue, the color of disbelief. Dr. Sung looked like he wanted to argue, but no words came out. That is suicide, Veltara finally said. No, Tay replied calmly. That is the only option that will work. If you sedate him heavily, his body will fight back like before. If you restrain him, he will panic. But if he is awake and knows what is happening, if he chooses to trust me, his body will not activate its defenses. You cannot know that, Dr. Sung said. Tai looked at him steadily. I have performed surgery on a fully conscious tiger that was caught in a trap. I talked to it the entire time. It understood that I was trying to help. I walked away without a scratch. This is the same thing, just on a larger scale. Veltara's antennae were moving in complex patterns, a sign that she was thinking hard. Everything in her medical training said this was wrong, dangerous, against every protocol, but all those protocols had already failed. If I allow this, she said slowly, you understand that you take full responsibility. If anything goes wrong, if anyone gets hurt, it is on you. I understand, Tay said without hesitation. Veltara looked at Yuna, who nodded slightly, then at the other doctors who looked uncertain but out of alternatives. Finally, she looked back at the monitors showing Krathvor. The Vorash's vital signs had stabilized for the first time since he arrived. Just from Tay's visit. Prepare the surgical theater, Veltara said. We operate in 6 hours. That gives Dr. Hansen time to prepare and Krathvor time to rest. As the doctors dispersed to make preparations, Veltara stopped Tay with one hand on his arm. You really believe this will work? She asked quietly. Tay met her compound eyes with his own. I believe that Krathvor wants to live. I believe that if we treat him with respect instead of fear, he will let us help him. And I believe that sometimes the best medicine is not about fighting the patient's nature, but working with it. Veltara nodded slowly. Then let us hope you are right, Dr. Hansen, for all our sakes. The surgical theater had been modified according to Tay's instructions. Most of the usual equipment was removed. The bright lights were dimmed. The space looked less like an operating room and more like a quiet den. In the observation gallery above, every important person on the station had gathered to watch. Veltara stood at the front, her 6 arms crossed in a way that showed tension. Lieutenant Hana Choi, head of station security, stood nearby with her hand near the emergency containment controls. The station's artificial intelligence, Iris, monitored everything through dozens of sensors. Even Council Observer Thrain had arrived, his crystalline body reflecting the dim lights as he watched silently. In the theater below, Krathvor lay on the reinforced surgical bed. His yellow eyes were open and alert. He had been given only minimal pain medication, just enough to take the edge off but not enough to make him unconscious. He could feel everything, see everything, and react to everything. Tay stood beside him, dressed in simple surgical clothes. He had requested only 2 assistants. One was Yuna, who would monitor vital signs. The other was Dr. Kira, whose scales were currently showing a nervous pattern of green and yellow. Her hands were steady, though, despite her fear. Before picking up any instruments, Tay did something that made the observers lean forward. He spoke to Krathvor in the Vorash language. His pronunciation was terrible, rough, and clumsy, but the meaning was clear. I am going to hurt you to heal you. You must trust me. I am not your enemy. Krathvor's response came through the translation system that Iris provided. Proceed, small hunter. I will not harm you. Tay picked up the scalpel. His hand was completely steady. He made the first incision along Krathvor's armored side, cutting through the tough outer layer to reach the damaged tissue beneath. Krathvor's body tensed. His claws extended slightly. In the observation gallery, Lieutenant Hana's hand moved closer to the emergency button. But Ty kept talking in that low, calm voice. I know it hurts. I am sorry. This part is necessary. Breathe slowly, like this. He demonstrated a breathing pattern, slow and steady. Krathvor's eyes stayed locked on Tay, but after a moment, his breathing matched the pattern. His body relaxed slightly. Amazing, whispered Veltara. He is using breathing to help control the pain response. The surgery continued. Every few minutes, Tay would explain what he was doing. Now I am moving this muscle aside. You will feel pressure. It is normal. Or this blood vessel is damaged. I need to clamp it. Stay still. Krathvor never spoke, but his eyes tracked every movement. Once, when Dr. Kira's hand trembled near a sensitive area, Krathvor made a low rumble. Kira froze, her scales flashing red with fear. Tay put a hand on her shoulder. He is just telling you to be careful, Tay said calmly. He is not threatening you. Right, Krathvor? The Vorash made a different sound, softer. Kira took a breath and continued working, more carefully this time. An hour into the surgery, they discovered the real problem. The internal damage was worse than the scans had shown. A major artery was severed, hidden beneath layers of thick muscle and armor. Blood was pooling in Krathvor's body cavity. This was the source of the internal bleeding that was killing him. Yuna's voice was tight, blood pressure dropping, heart rate increasing. In the observation gallery, doctors were whispering urgently. This was a critical emergency. Standard procedure would be to act immediately, to clamp the vessel quickly, to flood the area with drugs that would stabilize the patient. But Tay knew that rushing would trigger Krathvor's defenses. Moving too quickly, acting with panic would make the Vorash's body respond with violence. Instead, Tay did something that horrified everyone watching. He told Krathvor the truth. Your blood vessel is badly damaged, Tay said in Vorash, his accent still terrible but his words clear. I must clamp it to stop the bleeding. It will hurt more than anything so far. You must stay completely still. If you move, I cannot help you. The translation system carried Krathvor's response to the gallery. Do it. Lieutenant Hana Choi was sweating. Dr. Sung was gripping the railing of the observation gallery so hard his knuckles were white. Council Observer Thrane's crystalline body was vibrating with tension. Tay reached into Krathvor's body with surgical clamps. He had to push through dense muscle tissue to reach the damaged artery. Every movement caused pain. Krathvor's entire body went rigid. His claws extended fully, sharp enough to cut through steel. His jaw opened slightly, showing teeth that could bite through bone. But he did not move. Not a twitch. Not a flinch toward Tay or his assistants. Tay worked with absolute focus. Find the vessel, isolate it from surrounding tissue, position the clamp, close it. The procedure took 8 minutes. They were the longest 8 minutes in the station's history. Dr. Kira's scales were cycling through every color of stress and fear, but her hands never shook. Yuna's voice provided constant updates on vital signs, calm and steady. And Tay worked like he was repairing a machine, confident and precise. When the clamp finally closed and the bleeding stopped, Tay looked up at Krathvor's face. The worst is over. You did well. Krathvor's response was quiet but reached everyone watching. You are brave, human. Your pack should be proud. You are braver, Tay replied, already moving to the next step of the surgery. You trusted a stranger to cut you open. The rest of the operation took 4 more hours. Tay repaired the damaged artery, cleaned out the pooled blood, checked every organ for additional damage, and then began the careful process of closing the wound. Krathvor remained conscious for all of it, sometimes making sounds of pain but never pulling away, never activating his defensive systems. By the time Tay sealed the last layer of tissue and began closing the armored skin, it was clear that the surgery was a success. Krathvor's vital signs were stabilizing. The bleeding had stopped. The damage was repaired. As Tay removed his surgical gloves, he spoke to Krathvor one more time. It is done. You need to rest now. Your body needs time to heal. Krathvor's eyes were heavy, finally allowing himself to feel the exhaustion. I will rest. Thank you, healer. The word healer was important. In Vorash culture, it was a title of great respect given only to those who proved themselves worthy. Krathvor had just given it to a human he met hours ago. Tay, Yuna, and Dr. Kira left the surgical theater to applause from the observation gallery. Doctors who had been skeptical were now stunned into respect. Feltara approached Tay, all 6 of her hands clasped in front of her in a gesture of deep respect. I have been practicing medicine for 40 years, she said quietly. I have never seen anything like that. Tay was exhausted, his clothes soaked with sweat, his hands finally starting to shake now that the adrenaline was fading. It is not really that different from regular surgery. You just have to remember that the patient is a person and a predator, both at the same time. Dr. Sung stepped forward, his earlier skepticism gone. You could have died in there. One wrong move, one moment of panic from Krathvor, and he could have killed all 3 of you. Yes, Tay agreed simply. But he did not. Because he chose to trust us and we gave him a reason to. That is how you work with predators. You give them a choice and you respect the choice they make. Lieutenant Hana Choi finally took her hand away from the emergency controls. That was either the bravest thing I have ever seen or the craziest. Tay smiled tiredly. Sometimes they are the same thing. In the surgical theater, Krathvor had finally allowed himself to fall into real sleep. The monitors showed his body beginning the healing process. The staff carefully moved him to a recovery room, where he would be watched closely for the next few days. But everyone on the station knew that something fundamental had changed. A procedure that was supposed to be impossible had been done. A patient that could not be treated had been healed. And it had all happened because one human veterinarian understood something that all the brilliant alien doctors had missed. Sometimes the most advanced medicine was not about technology or protocols. Sometimes it was about understanding the patient's nature and working with it instead of against it. As Tai finally left to get some rest, Feltara stood in the empty observation gallery, looking down at the surgical theater. She was already thinking about what this meant for the future. If Tay could do this with one Varash, what else was possible? How many other species had been underserved by their medicine because of fear and misunderstanding? The questions filled her mind as she finally left the gallery. Tomorrow there would be reports to write, meetings to attend, and a whole galaxy of medical thinking to challenge. But tonight, one Varash warrior was alive because a human had refused to let fear control healing. And that was enough. The news of Krathvor's surgery spread through the galaxy faster than light could travel. Within days, medical stations across dozens of star systems were requesting information. How had it been done? What techniques were used? Could it be repeated? On Station Theta 9, Krathvor was recovering better than anyone had expected. What surprised the medical staff even more was how his recovery looked different from anything they had seen before. Tay visited Krathvor every day. Not as a doctor performing checkups, but as what he called social visits. He would sit near the Varash's bed and they would talk. Krathvor told stories about his homeworld, about hunts across crystal forests where the trees could cut you if you moved wrong, about the honor codes of his people and the battles that had shaped his life. Tay shared stories too. He talked about Earth's predators, about tracking grizzly bears through mountain ranges and swimming with crocodiles in swamps. He explained how humans learn to understand animals by respecting their nature rather than fearing it. Dr. Kira watched one of these visits through the observation window, her scale showing a thoughtful purple color. Dr. Sung stood beside her. I still do not fully understand what he is doing, Sung admitted quietly. Those visits are not medical. I think that is the point, Kira replied. Look at Krathvor's vital signs. His stress hormones are lower than any patient I have seen in recovery. His healing rate is faster than predicted. Tay is treating more than just his body. A new human doctor had arrived on the station. Dr. Jin Matsuda was a xenopsychologist, someone who studied the minds of different species. He spent hours interviewing Tay, trying to understand what made his approach work. On Earth, Tay explained to Jin during one session, humans have a unique relationship with predators. We were prey once, hunted by big cats and wolves. Then we became hunters ourselves, using tools and cooperation. Eventually, we became apex predators, but we never forgot what it was like to be hunted. That memory makes us different. How so? Jin asked, recording everything. Most species in the galaxy evolved in one direction. They were either predators or prey, and their entire civilization developed from that foundation. Herbivore species learned to build societies based on large groups and cooperation, because that is how you survive as prey. Predator species learned to respect strength and territory, because that is their nature. Jin nodded slowly. And humans? We remember both sides. We know what it feels like to be afraid, to be hunted, but we also know what it feels like to be strong, to hunt, to dominate. That makes us flexible. We can understand predators because we are predators, but we can also understand their fear and pain because we remember being prey. The interview was published in galactic medical journals. It caused arguments and discussions across hundreds of worlds. Some doctors rejected the idea, saying it was too simple. Others saw it as revolutionary. While the medical community debated, something more important was happening on Station Theta 9. 3 more Voresh arrived, clanmates of Krathvor who had heard what happened. They were not injured, but they wanted checkups. More importantly, they requested Ty specifically. Veltara was in a difficult position. The Galactic Medical Council was watching closely. Some members were impressed by Ty's success. Others were insulted that a veterinarian was treating sentient beings. The debate about proper protocols was heating up. Everything changed when Krathvor requested to address the medical council directly. The council meeting was held through holographic projection, connecting dozens of representatives from across the galaxy. Krathvor stood before them, his massive form still showing signs of recent surgery but standing strong. Tay stood to the side, quietly observing. I speak to you as a warrior of the Vorash people, Krathvor began, his deep voice carrying authority. When I came to this station, I was dying. Your doctors tried to help me. They had the knowledge and the skill, but they could not approach me because they were afraid. Their fear triggered my body's defenses. We were trapped in a cycle where their fear made me dangerous and my danger made them more afraid. The council listened in silence. Then the human came. This doctor who your rules say is not qualified to treat intelligent beings. He was not afraid. He saw me as both person and predator, and he treated both. Because of that, I am alive. Because of that, I could trust him when he cut into my body with me awake and aware. That trust saved my life. Council member Thrain's crystalline form glowed as he spoke. Are you suggesting we change centuries of medical protocol based on one successful surgery? I am suggesting, Krathvor replied, that your protocols failed. The human's approach worked. I was given dignity along with medicine. You gave me rules and distance. I choose dignity. The vote was not immediate. It took weeks of debate and discussion, but slowly the council began to agree on new guidelines. Predator species needed specialized care that considered their psychology and biology together. Stations could now create special departments for this purpose, and veterinary specialists from Earth could be certified to work with sentient predator species. Veltara called Ty to her office when the decision was finalized. The council has approved a new department, she said. The Predator Medicine Department. They want you to head it. Tay was quiet for a moment. I am not sure I am qualified to head an entire department. You are the only one qualified, Veltara replied. You proved that, but you will not be alone. Earth is sending more specialists, veterinarians who worked with wolves, with big cats, with bears, animal behaviorists who understand predator psychology. They will all work under you. Over the next few weeks, the new department took shape. Dr. Kira volunteered to transfer, wanting to learn these new approaches. Dr. Sung, despite his initial skepticism, also requested to join. I need to understand this, he admitted to Tay. I need to know how to work with patients without fear. The department treated its first non-Vorash patient a month after opening. A predator species called the Rathic, beings who looked like massive wolves standing on 2 legs. They had avoided medical care for generations because the treatments were too traumatic, filled with heavy restraints and sedation that felt like imprisonment. Dr. Kira performed the surgery on the Rathic patient using Ty's methods. She was nervous, her scales showing it clearly, but she followed the protocols they had developed together. Talk to the patient. Build trust. Respect their nature while treating their injury. When the surgery was successful and the Rothic patient thanked her with a gesture of respect from his people, Kira's scales turned gold. It was the color of joy. Word continued to spread. A journalist named Narration came to the station to write an article about the department. Her piece, titled "The Human Vet and the Apex Predators," became one of the most read articles in galactic media that year. It changed the public perception of what humans could offer the galactic community. Humans were not just good at engineering or exploration or war. They had a unique perspective on working with dangerous beings, on bridging the gap between intelligence and instinct. It was a gift nobody had recognized before. One evening, Tay found Veltara in the observation gallery, watching Dr. Kira work with a young Vorash patient. The chief physician's antennae were relaxed, a sign of contentment. "I was wrong about you," Veltara said without looking away from the window. "I was wrong about many things." "You were not wrong," Tay replied gently. "You were afraid of being wrong. There is a difference." "Explain." "Fear of failure makes us careful, which is good in medicine, but it also makes us rigid. We stop trying new approaches because we might fail. We follow protocols because they are safe, even when safe is not enough. You were not wrong to be cautious. You were just ready to learn something new." Veltara's antennae waved in a pattern that meant agreement. "Being wrong is how we grow." "Yes," Tay agreed. They stood together, watching the future of galactic medicine take shape through the window. A reptilian doctor treating a predator patient with confidence instead of fear. A human approach solving a problem that had existed for generations. And most importantly, patients receiving care that respected all of who they were. The shift had begun, and nothing in galactic medicine would ever be the same. 6 months after Krathvor's surgery, Station Theta 9 looked different. A new wing had been built, larger and designed specifically for the Predator Medicine Department. The walls were painted in calming colors. The rooms were spacious, giving patients room to move without feeling trapped. Everything about the design showed respect rather than restraint. Tay walked through the new wing with a sense of pride and hope. He was no longer the only human specialist on the station. Earth had sent support, and the department now had 5 human doctors working together. Dr. Mira Ko had arrived first, bringing 20 years of experience from big cat sanctuaries on Earth. She understood tigers and lions, how they thought and what they needed. Her gentle approach with the station's Rothic patients had made her popular quickly. Then came Dr. Wu Han, young and eager, specializing in bear behavior. He was nervous at first, overwhelmed by working with alien predators instead of Earth animals. But Tay mentored him carefully, and Wu was learning fast. The department treated dozens of species now. The Vorash came regularly, trusting the station completely. The Rothic spread word to their homeworld, and more patients arrived. New species that had avoided galactic medicine for generations were now seeking treatment. But the impact went beyond just Station Theta 9. Medical schools across the galaxy were changing their curriculum. New courses on predator psychology were being added. Doctors were learning that fear was not just a personal problem, but a medical one that affected patient care. Other stations were requesting training. Tay spent several weeks traveling to different facilities, teaching their staff the basics of working with predator patients. Build trust before treatment. Respect instincts. Never approach with fear because fear creates danger. Veltara had become one of the strongest supporters of the new approach. She co-authored papers with Tai, combining his practical experience with her medical expertise. Their research was changing how the entire galaxy thought about medicine. One of their papers explained something important. Most galactic species had evolved from prey animals because prey species survived by forming large groups and building complex societies. Predator species were rarer in galactic civilization because solitary hunters did not build cities as easily. This meant that medicine had been designed by prey species for prey species. Nobody had realized how much this affected patient care until now. Dr. Kira had become the department's second-in-command. Her scales rarely showed fear colors anymore. She had learned to channel her natural caution into careful preparation, rather than avoiding difficult cases. She was now teaching other prey species doctors how to overcome their instincts. "The key is breathing," she explained to a class of medical students from across the galaxy. "When you feel afraid, your body wants to run. But if you breathe slowly and deliberately, You can calm your instincts enough to work. The patient will sense your calm and respond to it. One of her students, a small herbivore species with fur and large eyes, raised a hand nervously. But what if the patient is dangerous? What if they hurt us? Kira's scales turned a confident blue. If you approach them with respect and calm, they usually will not. But if you approach them with fear and restraint, they definitely will. Fear makes predators defensive. Calm makes them cooperative. Dr. Tay taught us that, and it has proven true hundreds of times now. The department's reputation grew when they successfully treated a patient from a species nobody had worked with before. They were called the Dravik, massive predators from a high-gravity world. They looked like armored dinosaurs with intelligence that matched any species in the galaxy. They had never sought medical care from the Galactic Council because past attempts had ended in violence. When a Dravik named Shorka came to the station with a severe infection, everyone was nervous. Even Tay admitted uncertainty. But he followed his principles. Talk first, build trust, respect their nature. Shorka was suspicious at first. Your kind is small and weak. Why should I trust you? Tay's response was honest. You should not trust me because of my size. You should trust me because I understand strength. I have worked with the strongest predators on my world. I know that true strength includes knowing when to accept help. The logic appealed to Shorka. For his species, strength was the highest value. Admitting that accepting help was a form of strength gave him permission to trust. The treatment was successful. Shorka returned to his homeworld and told his people about the experience. Within weeks, more Dravik were coming to the station. A species that had been isolated from galactic medicine for centuries was now part of the community. Krathvor returned to the station several times, not as a patient but as a visitor. He and Tay had developed something rare, a friendship between species that would have never met under other circumstances. They shared meals together, Krathvor eating the meat he needed and Tay eating food from Earth that had been shipped to the station. During one visit, Krathvor asked Tay a question. Why do you do this? You could be wealthy treating humans on your homeworld. Why come to space and work with dangerous beings? Tay thought for a moment before answering. On Earth, I worked with animals that most humans feared. Tigers, bears, crocodiles. People thought they were monsters, dangerous and uncontrollable. But I saw them differently. I saw intelligence and beauty and a desire to live peacefully if given the chance. When I came to space and saw that some species were treated the same way, I knew I could help. Everyone deserves medical care without fear or judgment. Krathvor made the rumbling sound that meant deep respect. Your pack should be proud of you, small hunter. My pack is everyone I help, Tay replied with a smile. Including you. Ambassador Yuna visited the department regularly to observe its progress. The diplomatic implications were significant. Human-Vorash relations had improved dramatically. Other predator species were developing better relationships with the Galactic Council. The department was not just healing bodies but building bridges between cultures. One day, Yuna brought news. The Galactic Council wants to recognize Earth's contribution to medicine. They are offering humanity a seat on the Medical Oversight Committee. It was a significant honor. Earth was a relatively new member of galactic civilization, and such positions usually went to established powers. But humanity's unique perspective on working with predators had proven too valuable to ignore. In the department's main surgical theater, Dr. Wu Han was preparing for his first solo surgery on a Vorash patient. He was nervous, his hands shaking slightly as he checked his equipment. Tay and Krathvor stood in the observation gallery watching together. Will he succeed? Krathvor asked. Yes, Tay said with confidence. He has learned well. He respects your people without fearing them. That is what matters. They watched as Wu approached the patient, a young Vorash warrior injured in training. The young doctor's hand stopped shaking as he began talking to his patient, building trust before touching any surgical instruments. His movements were careful but confident, just as Tay had taught him. The surgery went perfectly. When it was done, the Vorash patient thanked Wu with the same gesture of respect that Krathvor had given Tay months before. In the gallery, Krathvor made a pleased rumbling sound. Your teaching spreads, small hunter. Soon all healers will understand what you have shown us. Tay nodded, feeling satisfied. That is the goal. Medicine should not be limited by fear. Every species deserves care that respects who they are. As weeks turned into months, the department continued growing. More staff were hired, both human and alien. More patients came from farther distances. The success rate was remarkable, not because of new technology or drugs, but because of a simple truth. Treating patients with respect instead of fear made everything work better. Dr. Sung, who had been skeptical at first, was now one of the department's best teachers. He had learned to overcome his own fears and now helped other doctors do the same. He often told students about the first time he watched Tai work with Krathvor. "I thought it was impossible," Sung would say. "I thought he was going to die. But he showed us that the impossible is often just the untried. Sometimes the best medicine is not more technology but more understanding." Veltara watched all of this with a sense of wonder. Her career had spanned decades working at the highest levels of galactic medicine. She had seen countless advances in technology and technique. But this simple shift in approach, this willingness to work with nature instead of against it, might be the most important development she had ever witnessed. Late one evening, she found Tay in his office reviewing patient files and planning treatments for the next day. She knocked softly on the open door. "Do you ever regret leaving Earth?" she asked. "You could have had an easier life there." Tay looked up, considering the question. "Easier, yes, but not better. Here, I am helping bridge gaps that nobody else could. I am teaching people that fear is not wisdom and that strength comes in many forms. This is where I am supposed to be." Veltara's antennae waved in agreement. "You have changed how the galaxy thinks about medicine. That is no small thing." "We have changed it together," Tay corrected gently. "You were willing to learn and adapt. That took courage, too." The alarm screamed through Galactic Medical Station Theta 9 for the third time that day. Chief Physician Veltara's antennae twitched with frustration as another medical team rushed past her office. Through the transparent walls, she watched them carry Dr. Kira on a stretcher. The reptilian surgeon's scales were flashing between red and brown, colors that meant pain and fear. "Another one," Veltara whispered to herself. Her 6 arms trembled slightly. In 40 years of practicing medicine across the galaxy, she had never encountered a patient like this. The patient was a Vorash named Krathvor. He was 12 feet tall with armor-like skin and claws that could tear through metal. His people came from Kravik 7, a death world where everything was built to kill. The Vorash were apex predators sitting at the top of their planet's food chain. They were also highly intelligent, members of the Galactic Council, and right now one of them was dying on her station. Krathvor had been injured in a territorial dispute between 2 clans. Internal bleeding was slowly killing him. The surgery to save him should have been simple for doctors of their skill level. But there was a problem nobody had predicted. Every time a doctor got close to Krathvor, his body fought back. Even under heavy sedation, his nervous system sent electrical shocks through his skin. His body released chemicals that paralyzed anyone who breathed them. 3 doctors were now in intensive care. 2 medical robots had been destroyed, their circuits fried by the defensive shocks. Veltara watched through the monitor as Krathvor lay motionless on the surgical bed. His massive chest barely moved with each breath. Time was running out. "Chief Physician, we need to make a decision." The voice belonged to her assistant, a thin creature with blue skin and 4 eyes. "The Medical Ethics Committee is waiting." Veltara's compound eyes focused on the screen. She knew what the committee would say. If they could not treat the patient safely, if every attempt to help him resulted in more casualties, then the humane choice was euthanasia. Let him die peacefully rather than watching him suffer while doctors stood helplessly outside his room. But the thought made her sick. They were supposed to be the best medical facility in this sector of space. How could they admit defeat? "Tell them I need 1 more hour," Veltara said. Her assistant nodded and left. Veltara turned back to the monitor, watching the dying Vorash. She had studied every piece of information about his species. She had consulted with experts across 3 star systems. Nothing worked. The Vorash body was designed to protect itself from threats, and unconscious or not, Krathvor's body saw every doctor as a threat. The door to her office opened. Ambassador Una Park walked in, her face serious but calm. Una was the human diplomatic liaison, responsible for maintaining good relationships between Earth and the Galactic Medical Council. She was in her 40s with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. "I received your message," Una said, sitting down without waiting for an invitation. "Earth is sending someone." Veltara's antennae perked up slightly. A xenobiologist? Your top surgeon? A veterinarian, Una replied. The word hung in the air like a bad smell. Veltara's antennae dropped flat against her head, a sign of extreme displeasure. A veterinarian. Veltara's voice was cold. Ambassador Krathvor is not an animal. He is a sentient being, a warrior of his people, a member of the Galactic Council. You insult him by sending someone who treats pets and livestock. Dr. Tay Hansen is not a regular veterinarian, Una said calmly. She pulled out a data pad and slid it across the desk. He specialized in Earth's most dangerous predators. Grizzly bears that weigh 800 pounds, saltwater crocodiles with jaws strong enough to crush bone, tigers that can kill with a single bite. Veltara looked at the information on the screen. Images showed a human male, average height, with dark hair and calm eyes. There were videos of him working with massive creatures that looked terrifying even through a screen. In one video, he was treating an injured tiger, his hands working on the animal's leg while the tiger was awake and watching him. This is different, Veltara argued, though her voice had less certainty now. Those are animals. Krathvor is intelligent. He thinks he feels he has a culture and history. I know, Una said, but his body does not care about culture when it is dying. His body only knows it is injured and threatened. Dr. Tay understands that. He has worked with predators his whole life. He knows how they think, how they react, how to approach them without triggering their defenses. Veltara wanted to argue more, but another alarm sounded. On the screen, Krathvor's vital signs were dropping again. Time was almost gone. When will he arrive? Veltara asked quietly. 2 hours, Una said. Krathvor might not have 2 hours. Then we better hope he does. The next 2 hours felt like days. Veltara paced her office, checking the monitors every few minutes. The medical staff whispered in the hallways. Everyone knew they were waiting for a miracle that probably would not come. When Dr. Tay Hansen finally arrived, Veltara was surprised by how ordinary he looked. He was not tall or impressive. He did not carry fancy equipment or wear a dramatic uniform. He just had a worn backpack and clothes that looked comfortable rather than professional. His face was calm, with small wrinkles around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. Veltara met him in the hallway with several other senior doctors. Dr. Sung, a human trauma physician who had recently transferred to the station, was there too. He looked embarrassed by Tay's casual appearance. Dr. Hansen, Veltara said formally. I am Chief Physician Veltara. We appreciate Earth sending someone, but I must tell you that the situation is critical. We have very little time and many doubts about this approach. Tay nodded slowly. I understand. Can I see the patient's file? Veltara handed him a data pad. Tay read through it quickly, his expression never changing. When he finished, he looked up at the group of doctors watching him. I would like 10 minutes alone with Krathvor, he said simply. The hallway erupted with protests. Dr. Sung stepped forward, his face angry. That is suicide. Did you not read the file? 3 doctors are in intensive care. This creature cannot control his defensive responses. I read the file, Tay said quietly. 10 minutes alone. No cameras inside the room, but you can watch from the observation window if you want. Veltara's antennae were rigid with tension. Every instinct told her this was wrong. But what choice did they have? In another hour, maybe 2, Krathvor would be dead anyway. If you die in there, Veltara said slowly, it will create a diplomatic incident between Earth and the Varash people. Then I better not die, Tay replied with a small smile. He walked toward the isolation chamber where Krathvor lay. The doctors followed at a distance, gathering at the observation window. Veltara watched as Tay stood at the door for a moment, taking a deep breath. Then he opened it and stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. Tay was alone with one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators, and everyone watching was certain they were about to witness a tragedy.